And now I'll take questions.
Mr. Richards, the pre-budget report projects that national debt will keep rising. Do you expect and anticipate that the Minister for Finance will be raising the debt ceiling, which is currently at $1.25 billion, in the very near future? And if so, in which session of Parliament?
I've been saying now for the last year and a half that she's going to have to raise that debt ceiling. Last year they pulled a little trick. What they did, they redefined what debt was. They took off the guarantees, and therefore by redefining what debt was, they didn't have to raise the debt ceiling. But in fact, debt did go up. They've pretty much used up all of that sort of headroom in the debt allowed. So I anticipate in the near future, next year, that we will have to have a rise in the debt ceiling. Yes.
The pre-budget report suggests a high of $1.48 billion by 2015 and 16. How high and how quickly do you think the debt will go?
I don't know the answer to that, but that depends on a lot of different things, some of which are in our control and some of which are not in our control. But I think that I haven't seen any plan from the government to really throttle that back. We are still spending more than we earn. We're still spending more than the budget calls for. That's something that really has to be taken in mind. You know, there's all this talk about cutting back and cutting back, and when you look at it, you know, she said she would spend, you know, X million, and she spent X plus another set of millions. So, you know, they still do not have control of the government expenditure. The government budget is still out of control. And with that, you know, we can see nothing but more deficits and more debt.
Mr. Richards,
sir,
you mentioned international companies not feeling welcome and leaving this trend. We haven't really we're not been hearing why are they leaving. It's just that they're leaving places like Ireland and Switzerland. Why exactly in your opinion?
Well, you haven't heard. We've been saying why. Yeah, we've been saying a lot of that. I mean, you know, Bermuda is an expensive place in which to do business. But that alone won't stop people coming here to set up businesses, to hire people, give Bermudians jobs, you know, to increase our GDP. That won't stop them from doing it. But if they come and they're hassled by government on top of that, and one of the main sticking points, if you like, is the Department of Immigration. There's a huge bureaucratic and hassle factor with immigration, and the term limit policy, which has also been a huge hassle factor for international business. And they have said, basically, look, we've got other choices of places to be, places where the government behaves as if they want us to be here. What we have in Bermuda, we have institutionalized a desire to slow down business. You know, during the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, the whole idea of immigration, of the 60-40 law, all these things, what were they there for? They were there to sort of slow business down, keep money from overwhelming us, keep foreigners from overwhelming us, okay? All that was institutionalized. Now we have a situation where we need that foreign money to come in here. We need those foreign workers to come in here. Every one of those foreign workers, 5 of those foreign workers creates 1 Bermudian job. Okay? So we need those people in here. But we have institutions that are designed to keep them out. This is a serious problem, what we call a structural problem. It's a serious problem, and you need a change in mindset to turn that around. And I say, and I submit that the only kind of change of mindset you can get to do that is a new government.
Let's say next month the OBA elections call, OBA wins the government, and what's the first area you're going to cut to save money in government? one area that...
Well, we need to cut a lot of things. You know, we'll have to have a comprehensive look at the kinds of services that we provide Bermuda and how efficient they are. And we also have to have a look at a lot of our other expenses. You know, we don't exactly know what we're going to find when we take over the government. That's the problem with, you know, this sort of system. We only know what the government tells us. And when you become the government, then you know what's really, you know, inside the wrapper. So you can't say definitively what we'll do when we become the government, because we don't know what's inside the wrapper. But we are coming in with a particular philosophy as it relates to budget control, all right? And that's the key thing. You know, we're not going to tolerate the sorts of overruns and the kind of laissez-faire attitude that we've seen existing up until now. Sir.
My question is, you talked about just thought on international business and the bureaucracy that's slowing down, hassling international business, right? But we've also heard the Premier say that she's going to roll out the red carpet and less red tape. Are you just dismissing that? I mean, can you give them credit for at least recognizing that problem?
Well, in the first place, any recognition of that problem came from the fact that we on our side were hammering away at it. That's the first thing. So, you know, I can give them recognition for at least hearing us, because prior to our hammering away at it, there was no recognition of it at all. But let me give you a good example of what I mean by it's going to take a change of government to change this thing. We had legislation in the House week before last called the Incentives to Job Creators, and it was passed by Parliament. On our side, we looked at the legislation and said there are two clauses in here that will, there was such an attempt by this government to put restrictions on this that they restricted all the biggest players right out of the whole equation. We looked at two clauses in that legislation and said any company, any Bermuda company that is a public company like ACE, XL, Endurance, AWAC, any one of a partner, any one of those companies where they are traded on a foreign exchange will not qualify for that particular incentives program. So what they did, they passed some legislation that sounded good, right? But in fact, all of the would-be biggest job creators were screened out. So, I mean, this is a real live example of what I'm talking about. That there is not a commitment to actually do something about this problem. There's only a commitment to window dressing. And we pointed that out in Parliament. They refused to make the amendments, and therefore we have a law that's going to do nothing.
Where do you get the stats of 5 non-Bermudian jobs created, 1 Bermudian job?
The Chamber of Commerce have done studies on that, and that's the ratio they come up with.
5 non-Bermudian jobs.
5 non-Bermudian jobs create 1 Bermudian job. Yep. And you know, we've had thousands. We have had the loss of thousands of non-Bermudian jobs.